Paul, congratulations on a remarkable film.
Thank you.
A general question first about your desire to tell both this story and this kind of story. I mean, early on in your career, Bloody Sunday, then United 93, and now Captain Phillips, and they all belong in a series of films by you that turn extraordinarily tense, divisive or potentially divisive real-life stories into drama and serious entertainment. I mean, also each of them are also ripe with potential for controversy as well. And what's the attraction for you personally for this sort of tale, and then also why this story specifically?
Well, I tried doing romantic comedies, but I wasn't very good at them. That was the first problem. I like films about what's going on out there, however you define that. If you can find those stories and they're dramatic and they've got, great characters, twists and turns, and they can take you out into the world and show you some of the complexities of it. I suppose that's what it really amounts to.
Thank you. And Tom Hanks, similar question. I mean, here you are playing a man, Richard Phillips, who went through this experience only a very short time ago in 2009, still very much living, a man who you've met
hung out
as
with
well.
him, yeah, talked to him at length.
Do those things, I mean, you've made many films over your career, do those things bring with them extra responsibilities for you as an actor, and also extra pressure as well? You're not only having to do justice to a story and a filmmaker, but also to the truth and to someone else's life as well.
Well, I think the responsibility goes hand in hand with any time you're just going to stand up in public and say, hey, I got a story to tell. There is a bit of both advantage and a pressure that comes along with something that is nonfiction-ish, You do have an advantage is that if you're smart about it, you have very little that you need to make up. You have things you must condense, you have things you must translate to the screen, you have things that you have to figure out how to take reality and turn it into some sort of dramatic effect. But that actually helps out because then you don't have to spend an awful lot of time making up, plot devices, what have you. The responsibility aspect is that as long as you're making the same film as the filmmaker is making, you're going for the same sort of empirical sense of truth. You have to hew as closely to the truth as possible. It's not a documentary, of course, and even in the first meetings I had with Rich, I said, look, I'm going to say things you never said, and I'm going to do things you did not do. But based on that, let's get as close to the DNA of the authenticity as possible. But that's a trade-off just for any other pressures and responsibilities you have making a movie that's completely made up.
Well, it was very important to me that we cast Somali actors to play those parts. That felt to me an absolutely fundamental part of authenticity, going back to that first question. But obviously there's no Somali acting community in Los Angeles or New York or Chicago or whatever. So we went to Minneapolis, which is the largest Somali community in the US, and we also cast a lot of the smaller parts, small Somali parts. For instance, in the other skiff, the guys on the mothership and in the village, they were all from the UK. The four main parts came from the US, and we held large open castings, fantastically creative community filled with musicians and actors and filmmakers. It just hasn't had a chance in the mainstream. So what I thought would be a difficult process actually turned out to be, an abundance of rich talent. And those four young men, I think, did a wonderful job.
I think the challenges were in order to, number one, discover and establish the procedure of the two very specific worlds we're in, which is prior to the pirates' arrival and then after the pirates' arrival. There are procedures, there are things that happened that are documented by not only by Rich's book, but also by reports and news events and what have you. But there is an internal procedure that has to be arrived at. We were lucky that we were shooting on literally the sister ship or a sister ship of the Maersk Alabama, the Maersk Alexander, and a crew. There was we always had a source of, well, how do you do there and how do you get from there to there? Because you can write it in a screenplay, which Billy Ray did to to an expert degree. But when you are in the real space, you're trying to operate in some degree of real time, you have to know what the procedure is. And in order to make that, to find it out, to put it into practice, and then to unfold it into the filmmaking process, that was true kind of like legwork, homework that we had to do, that in some degrees ate up time, but on the other hand, provided just a fabulous background and DNA to each of the scenes.
The first day we started shooting, Tom was in there with the 4 guys playing the pirates, and Barry Ackroyd, the DOP, the focus puller, and Chris Carreras, my AD, and I was in a small camera boat next door with a walkie-talkie. And we started the scene, and it sort of was going okay, but I was kind of anxious to drive on, and I spoke to Chris. I said, well, what's going on? He said, focus puller doesn't look so good. So I said, I don't care, just shoot, will you? He said, focus puller's just thrown up all over Tom. I don't care, shoot on. He said, now Barry's thrown up too. So that gives you a little insight into what it was like.
In Malta, before we started shooting, I said, can I just go out in that lifeboat to see what it's like? And it's a very slow vessel. So there in Valletta, we climbed in, and it took about 40 minutes to get out beyond the breakwater, out beyond the jetty, and out into the open ocean. I needed about 3 minutes out in that open ocean. I said, okay, all right, I got it. You can turn this around now. It was. I said, oh, this is going to be a particularly authentic hell on earth.
It's a great honor and a privilege. I love the festival. I think it's an important festival. I think it's growing in importance. I think we tend to underestimate its importance. Unlike other festivals, for instance, what I think is very, very good about the London Festival, it takes place in a city where a lot of movies are made. And that distinguishes it, I think, in a very powerful way. And I don't see that said often enough. You know, we talk about some of the other wonderful festivals, you know, around the world and elsewhere in Europe. But what distinguishes this festival is it's a major international festival in a major international filmmaking centre and a major domestic filmmaking centre. So that gives it a particular vibrancy, I think.
It may put other film festivals out of business. Venice may crumble, Deauville might go away, Toronto will become an asterisk. They're really throwing down the gauntlet here in this London Film Festival.